Thank you.
Now we are moving to hear the presentation of Dr. Fadoua Loudiy. I don't know if I speak her name in a good manner, but yes.
It's Loudiy, but it's
Loudiy.
Yes.
Okay, so Fadoua Loudiy, and she is an author, speaker, co-director of the Middle East Center at Slippery Rock University. Her areas of expertise is intercultural communication, diversity, equity, and inclusion, civil discourse, ethic, transitional justice. She is really expertise in many things. So I Googled to know about her so much. I'm happy to hear of you, and now she will give her presentation about Saida Menebhi, a poetic discourse on women's rights. And the floor is yours. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Let me see if I can share my screen. Here we go. Thank you all so much. And I'm very humbled and honored to be with all of you. I learned so much from your presentations, very enlightening and wonderful, wonderful presentations. Before I get started, as was said, the presentation is on Saida Menebhi, and I'm wondering if any one of you has heard that name before. Maybe not, but I have to share something personal about this presentation and give a sort of disclaimer because this presentation is part of a lifelong project. It's a biography I am writing on Saida Menebhi, who happens to be my aunt, my mother's sister. Saida dedicated her life to advocate for women's rights and the rights of the powerless. And along with Nawal Saadawi, she understood feminism and the struggle against oppression of women in societies in the MENA region as integral to the fight for socioeconomic, political, and sexual justice. Saida died when I was 5 years old, and she was a political prisoner, and so was my father and other members of my family. So this work is very much personal and intertwined with my own narrative. And this ongoing writing on Saida is an attestation. It is a call beyond oblivion, against oblivion. I want her struggle and her story to be known and celebrated. Since we're celebrating Arab women as agents of change, I want it to be celebrated and known beyond my family and beyond Morocco. And I want her story to be an inspiration for strength and resistance to other women everywhere. So first, I'm going to give a short biography of her life, then talk a little bit about her activism, but I'm going to focus mostly on her poetry. And then I'll talk a little bit about the kind of the implications and the meaning of her poetry for women's rights and feminism in Morocco and beyond. So, and I guess before I get to Saida's story, I want to give just a little brief background on these years where she was a political prisoner. These years are known in Morocco as the years of lead. And by lead, we mean bullets, right? The lead in the bullet. So from 1956, which is the year of independence of Morocco from France, to 1999, these years are collectively named the years of lead in Morocco, Sanawat Rasas in Arabic. So the conflict during this period in Morocco was a struggle for power after independence from France between the king, the monarchy, and other political parties. And most of the political parties or the targets of political violence were leftists, mostly Marxists, military officers, and we had 2 failed coups in 1971 and 1972. Most of them ended up in Tazmamart, which is a prison in Morocco. It was kind of a secret prison in the south of Morocco. Sahrawis, which are people from Western Sahara, Islamists, Muslims, Jews, Arabs, Amazigh, everyone. It was, they did not discriminate. Anyone who challenged the monarchy was fair game. And so the crimes that were committed against these people were forcible disappearances. People were kidnapped, including my aunt, my dad, my uncle. So forcible disappearances, arbitrary violence and arrest, executions, mass graves. And then, the official estimate of the number of victims of the years of lead is about 500,000 people. We assume it is a lot more. And just to give you an idea, Morocco has about 35 million people right now. So this was in the 60s, 70s. So let's go back to Saida. So Saida was born in 1952 in Marrakesh. So it was 4 years before Morocco's independence from France. And at the time, after the French left Morocco, the struggle was no longer against the French, but against the monarchy. And in 1967, when she was 15, she joined the National Union of High Schoolers, which is Le Syndicat National des Lycéens, which was a clandestine organization that was prohibited by the king. So it was like a student union, but at the level of high school. And she actually, I was just told, so I got, as you can imagine, I received most of my information from my family, my mom in particular, who was very close with her. But she told me that actually my aunt used to organize secret meetings at age 15 in her sister's hair salon, unbeknown, of course, to her sister. But after high school, she went to Rabat, which is the capital of Morocco, to enroll at the university. Her brothers were already involved in political parties, and she joined the United Front of Progressive Students, which was known as the Front. It is a Marxist organization. It was. And in 1972, she became very active, and she was actually elected as a Congress member and started organizing strikes with the student movement. And then later on, she joined what was called Organization A, which became Ilal Amam. And that was an organization that the government outlawed, and it became, again, a clandestine organization. Then after that, she became very, very known in the movement, and she actually left the university because she was constantly harassed and followed by the police, and she went to become a high school teacher of English. So in 1976, in January, she was married, I think, in 1974, and then divorced, and then she was living with her new, partner, who was arrested, or about in early January of 1976. So he was arrested, and since they were living together and she didn't see him coming back, she knew that he was kidnapped. So she hid at my mom's house with us for a few days, waiting for that to pass. When she came back to her home, she thought things calmed down. The secret police was waiting for her in her house, and they kidnapped her. And we learned later on that her partner had given the keys to her apartment to the police under torture. And so so during that time, from 1976 to 1977, it's about a 2-year period where she was tortured. She was sentenced to 5 years in prison, plus 2 for contempt of court, because in the court they wanted to also judge her for living with a man without being married, for her morality of sorts. So she claimed her right to have a personal life, and that it was no one's business. And for that, they added 2 years to her sentence for contempt of court. But so then in December, late November, 1977, because she and her friends were considered to be just prisoners, not really prisoners of conscience or political prisoners. They went on hunger strike to have the status of political prisoner, and her hunger strike continued for 35 days. And after 35 days, her body started shutting down, and the government prevented everyone, the doctors and everyone, to help her, to provide any support or anything for her, because she was considered a traitor, basically. So then she died, and she was 25 years old. So during her time in prison, she wrote several poems, about, I think, 80 poems in French. And I know some people earlier talked about Francophone literature. Her poetry falls under that genre of Francophone literature. She wrote letters to her family, and she also interviewed sex workers or prostitutes who were with her in prison, to kind of link their struggle and their status to the struggle that she was advocating for, that what they were experiencing was a consequence of the conditions that people were suffering from at the time. So I would like to go, so I want to talk a little bit about why I'm interested in this beyond just the familial or the personal, I guess, aspect of her life story. I am very much compelled and interested in questions that relate to the past, because it's not like I'm obsessed with the past or have romantic nostalgia, but some of you have spoken about temporality, how our past lives in the present and how we project our present into the future. So it is very much part of the ethos of a nation, how that particular country or nation or community deals with its past. So I'm interested in how people deal with the past, especially when that past is one of political violence and trauma, which I would surmise many families and communities in the Arab world have experienced and continue to experience. And as historical beings, humans seek to make sense of the past, to find meaning that could inform the future and their present. So this is very important, especially because the past in this particular situation is a past that is filled with violence, pain, and suffering. And typically memory, there's like this kind of, people put a parallel sometimes between memory and history. And I prefer memory, public memory in particular, because I feel that it is the authentic location of a nation's past experiences and knowledge, whereas history is more of a linguistic construct that uses memory, but also sometimes abuses it. And this tension between history and memory is beautifully captured by Nora in his book, Realms of Memory. I'm going to quickly read this quote because I think it's beautiful. He says, "Memory is life, always embodied in living societies and as such in permanent evolution, subject to the dialectic of remembering and forgetting, unconscious of the distortions to which it is subject, vulnerable in various ways to appropriation and manipulation, and capable of lying dormant for long periods of time, only to be suddenly reawakened. And he goes on to say, memory is always a phenomenon of the present, a bond tying us to the eternal past. History is more of a representation of the past. So memory, I feel, brings in the emotional and phenomenological aspects of our lived experiences. So it's that emotional aspect that I'm interested in bringing in when we talk about poetry as public memory. So, of course, the sociopolitical and cultural context of her poetry is very unique. She's a young Arab woman standing up to the political and sociocultural tyranny of the late 1960s, early 1970s. And before her, of course, there were women who stood up to French colonialism and fought along the man, and not to dismiss their courage or bravery, but to stand up to your own kind of sorts is a whole different ballgame, especially in the context of an Arab country. And as I mentioned earlier, the 1970s, the early 1970s, and it's after the 1968 protest around the world, especially in France and the United States, that struggle brought a different seed of female activists in Morocco. I'm going to actually share with you, I don't know if anyone knows of Susan Slimovic. She writes about human rights in Morocco, and she talks about Saida Menebhi and other women such as Latifa Jbabdi, Rabia Al-Ftuh, Fatima Ukasha, Maria Zouina, Fatna Al-Beh, Widad Bouab, Maria Sharaf, who were emblematic figures for women, for Moroccan women who were aware of their alienation from their society, not only due to the lack of democracy, but also due to their female gender. And she says they tied the lack of democracy to the patriarchal society in which they lived. Women chaired student meetings, took part in rallies, demonstrated along male comrades, organized other women students, and participated vocally in political debates. Unlike their nationalist mother, whose role may have been to support men in the struggle for independence, these women students drew on the 1960s wave of feminism in Morocco and its theoretical readings in order to engage in activism as a means to promote democracy as well as equality between the sexes. So I'm going to read some of these poems. Some of them are, little intense, as you will notice. So this is, this is the poem where she describes her kidnapping. And it was January 1976. She says at exactly 6 p.m., two terrifying, and excuse me, just a note, these were written in French and this is my translation of the poems. So at exactly 6 p.m., two terrifying dragons, two policemen, the political police blurred the waters of my ocean in my house and yours. The walls turned pale with hatred for all the fascists. Things have hearts too. The dark dragons inflicted so much pain on that chair, the one on which we sat so many times. Do you remember? You called me ma belle, and we started our days reading the newspaper. So this poem is addressed to Aziz Larish, who was her partner, who was living with her at the time, and who actually gave her, who was the reason why she was arrested. She didn't know that, but she describes how the police came to her house and basically destroyed her peace and invaded. It's like a violation of her space with her partner. and the hatred that these fascists have, and how much pain they inflicted, not just on her, but also on things, that things too have feelings. And that theme of things having feelings comes up later on in her, in other poems. So the second poem is about her country, the country about Morocco, but it's also about her lover, her partner. And she says, the wind of my country blows, howls, growls. On the humid soil it sweeps. The wind draws figures, engraves the past, mine, yours, that of everyone. Its sound reminds me of a symphony, the one used to whisper in my ear every night, a long time ago. Today, this evening, tonight, only life's fingerprints come back to my mind, and the tenacious rain, the stubborn wind, come back every year, bring me back to you as far as you are. They remind me again that I have a body, that I have a voice, which are my gift to you. And I should mention that there's a movie, couple movies actually made on her, but I want to mention that she, during when she was being tortured, the police, all the women were given men's name or numbers, but most of the women in her in the prison where she was were given men's name, and she was actually given as an example to her comrades that she never gave up anyone's name, that she really resisted during torture, and her comrades, when they came up out of prison, they all shared how all the police told them to be like lallak. In Arabic, lallak is like your superior, because she did not surrender to torture. So the next one is about, again, talking to her lover, but actually feeling the weight of her solitude and loneliness. So she says, I want to break my silence. I want to humanize my loneliness. They put me at loose ends so that my thinking would rest and my mind would freeze. But you, whom I cherish, know that like a volcano that is alive, I am all fire. To burn the heavy doors, I am all strength. To break the evil locks and run to you, to jump into your arms. And I think it's really important here to remember that, I don't know if anyone is really familiar with Marxist ideology and Marxist militants, but they are very much, they reject any kind of emotion because they see emotion as a type of weakness. So she not only kind of shattered the stereotypes of an Arab and Muslim society, but also the stereotypes that have been imposed on a Marxist militant of sorts, that you should not show any feelings because they are seen as a sign of weakness. And next one is a poem where she describes, and I said earlier that she had that she conducted interviews with prostitutes in prison. And this is a description of the sex workers that she met there. And she says, naked or dressed in rags, the worker, the prostitute, the thief are all here. The sky is gray and the walls are black. Their feet are swimming in mud. Their bodies are shivering. Their eyes are looking for something. They certainly wonder why you and I, my love, are far from one another. They are cold. Why this tough nature cannot feel sympathy for them and go away and not come back again because they don't have anything to wear. Oh, careless winter, deaf wind, you chap their hands and lips. Let us have the time to take away from those who exploit us. So you can see that she's connecting their exploitation, their situation to her own struggle in this poem, and she does the same in the article that she started writing. It isn't unfinished. She never had a chance to finish it, but she started the interviews and started kind of analyzing the data that she collected from the interviews. And the last poem I'm going to read is one that was dedicated to my cousin, who was a child, and who came to see her because we all went and visited. She says, "Prison is ugly. You draw it, my child, with black stripes, with bars and gates. You imagine it a place with no light, a place that frightens little children. And with your little finger, you point to a faraway place, a place you cannot see. Maybe your teacher has told you about a hideous place, a hideous prison, a house of correction, where evil people are put, those who steal children. Then in your little head, the question arises, how and why am I, who is so full of love for you and for all children? Why and how am I there? It is because I want that tomorrow prison not to be here anymore." And oops, the last one, I think I will skip it, is a description of a hunger strike.
Okay.
Oops.
We have 1 minute. 1 minute.
1 minute? Okay. All right. Oops. I need to go back. All right. So basically, her poetic discourse is a powerful testimony that provides a woman's perspective on state violence and incarceration. It debunks the myth that Arab women are powerless and weak, especially at that time. And along with many other women, she was instrumental in the struggle to change the political regime in Morocco. And of course, her poetry is to be seen as a response to the patriarchal order in Morocco, which tried to silence and repress women in the name of tradition, religion, or political order. And also what her poetry reveals is that a lot of people, we have kind of a struggle in her representation in Morocco because people try to represent her as a martyr. And the martyr is someone who willingly dies. We don't believe she willingly died or sacrificed her life. So we want her life to be, to represent love, love for her partner, love for her family, for sex workers, for all people. And that was the end goal of her activism. And oops, I guess just one last quote, something she wrote to her mom, my grandmother. She said, "I want you to know that being in prison does not mean that my life was taken away from me. In fact, my life has various meanings, and as it progresses, it can take various directions. Prison is a school and an alternative form of education." And I will end here. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you for your presentation. And since your presentation was the last one, I would to stress that your presentation is one of that I call the fair ones, who present feminist women who were still not much voiced. And Saida has a particular sad life story, but a very strong stances. And yes, if she is in the prison, if she was in the prison, that doesn't mean that she is not free, I think, because she is still free in our minds. Previously, I read only some of her poems, but because of your speech, I get to know her feminist and personal march. So many thanks for your presentation too, Fadoua.
Thank you.
And now we are finished, I think, Dr. Kamal.
Okay, well, first of all, we should also clap for her the way we did for everybody. So, all right. And I must say that I've seen a couple of, little messages about the interest in the poetry of your aunt. And so what I can suggest is that in order to protect your own intellectual property, all of you, is that please work on producing a final, copy of your presentation papers, and we'll give you till the 15th of December to submit in order for us to actually review them and publish them, all right?
Okay.
So this is really important. I was going to suggest, if you would like, at least to put some kind of partial parts, you know, that we can post for you, especially if there is a particular or a special request. The way I read some of the messages, that they are very much interested in reading this poetry in English translation. So she wrote in French, she said.
Yes.
The original is in French. Did she ever write anything in Arabic?
No.
Okay. So she was certainly a woman ahead of her time. And that's always the problem for individuals who are always ahead of their own time. And I must admit that one of the things that is, has struck me throughout the day was the prison experience, almost like a common feature of many of the great activists and that we've heard presentations about. So much so that it actually made me think that perhaps it is an experience that is so essential, for shaping your human experience and the taste of the violence against you and the ability to survive that and go beyond it. This whole thing about writing as almost like an ointment that you put on your physical as well as psychological wounds. Really lovely. I could see that. All right. So I must admit that I do not regret that we went way above time today, but it was all enjoyable. And as long as I have your goodwill and appreciation, we were going to conclude today our presentations and remind you that tomorrow we will start again according to like London time. We'll start again at 8:30 a.m. London time. Tomorrow we'll start at the same time, and we will also have a new feature tomorrow, and that is a group of presentations in Arabic. So the whole idea is to actually have this interaction between those who are Arabic speakers and those who speak other languages. And tomorrow, help me in making this a success. I'm talking about the Arabic presentations. Of course, the persons, giving the presentations can continue to field questions in Arabic, but I think from time to time we will test it. We'll see if you can pose a question in English, and maybe we can just very quickly give an outline of the question so that we can all benefit. It's not like I want during the Arabic presentations, those of you who don't know Arabic, not to be able to participate, right? So
I will be one of them tomorrow, so I will speak in Arabic in the first panel. Yes, tomorrow.
Well, of course you are welcome, and we're happy to have you, Ara. And so together, let us not make it like a formal one person doing this, but together, because many of us are bilingual, maybe even polyglots. So we will help with the Arabic presentations by understanding that we should, at least during the question and answer, we'll have the question and answer in Arabic and maybe a little summary in English, so for the benefit. And those of you who speak English can pose a question in English, and we can relate this to the person presenting in Arabic. Do you see that? You see the whole idea, really, and the great benefit for a conference like this is to have this interactive, okay, and this kind of two-way waltz of ideas and of discussions. And therefore, something else is going to happen to come out of this. We need that synergy. We do not want a monolingual presentations and conferences. Sometimes we are in the Arab world totally isolated from the writings and the scholarship on the Arab world, about the Arab world, about Arab issues. And likewise, sometimes, but not always, the people in the Western world, sometimes in the Western Academy, sometimes are not always fully aware of the exact, the dynamics of dialogues and discussions and heated debates in the Arab world about the same issues they discuss in their writings. Okay, so without further ado,
Question.
Yes.
Just a quick question, Kamal. So for tomorrow, we use the same link, or we will be sent a new link?
Oh, no. You are sent a new link it's a special link. And I think that we already sent that.
Yeah. There is one for the 8th. That's fine.
Okay. My dear Ahmed, you know the answer.
I don't, because now this morning a new one was sent apart from the 2 previous ones. So,
oh, really?
Avoid any confusion, I want to make sure.
Oh, thank you. Then in this case, thank you. I wasn't aware of that one. Okay.
Sorry, I want to say it's the same link, but I have sent the email today as a reminder and to be easy to find the Zoom link directly instead of searching of your emails.
Yeah. So if you just send that tomorrow again, that would be great.
Sure. Okay.
Thank you.
I have just sent us an email from a while, including the Zoom link for tomorrow, and also I will send another email tomorrow morning.
Thank you very much.
Would you like something else, Ahmed?
تصبح على خير.
Okay, very good. So you've been a wonderful group of people. So happy that everything went well, and we will come up with a set of resolutions and ideas that is going to make us very proud. And we will involve the wonderful talents around. We will put a statement to nominate Nawal Saadawi for the Nobel Prize. And we will send it and we'll give it to our dear friend, Swedish friend, Dr. Per. And in at least we can give it to him in 2 languages, and we'll ask him kindly to translate this into Swedish. We will also have other ideas to discuss tomorrow and resolutions to make.
If you allow me, Mr. Kamal.
Yes, who is this?
I am Ishtar. I am a Syrian poet and writer and head of Girard Publishing House. I am so happy to join you at this conference, first of all, and I'm so happy because there are a lot of women in this conference, and I am happier because there are men that celebrate in Arab women. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you for this. Actually, this is one of the ideas that we want to present. That just go and cross these kind of borders that separate us, and in the end to just work up a way to be human beings, decent human beings. All right, very good.
Just one question, Mr. Kamal, if you allow me. So I'm just confused about the time frame. 8 a.m. in UK, it means 3 a.m. in USA?
Yes, is that the case?
Yeah,
8:30 actually.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Honestly, this is who's this? Wujdan?
Yeah, Wujdan from Menebhi.
Dr. Wujdan, okay. Honestly, Dr. Wujdan, we couldn't find a way to
No, just
kind
to
of-
be sure. I don't want to change anything. Just to be sure that 8 a.m. in UK, it means 3 a.m. in USA. That's it. So just to be
right.
sure.
First of all, believe me, it is worth it to wake up at 3 a.m. and to attend our. Okay.
This is more than a question, Dr. Kamal.
Okay. Well, the second thing is that we are aware of that. We are aware of the fact. I mean, I was alerted first by my own daughter, who lives in Canada. Is Amira around? Okay. You know, and so because we are aware of the time difference, we are, as you know, recording these presentations and will make them available to all of you. So if you miss, you can always review, you know, later, after.
Perfect.
Okay. Is there anything else?
Thank you, Mr. Kamal. This is Kasiana. Can you please tell us the links will be sent to us after the conference?
Okay. Definitely, I can assure you that we have already sent the link for tomorrow. And
no, I apologize. The links with the recordings. The links with the recordings of the conference of all the talks.
With the recordings. I have to refer to my wonderful assistant, Nuran. Nuran?
Yes, the recordings will be uploaded to the conference website, and we will send you an email once they are uploaded.
Okay.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
All right. Is there anything else? Is there any other question? Okay. And so we're in high spirits. We're going to go now to sleep and, well, I don't know, or to start the day.
No, we start the day.
Good about ourselves.
Actually, we start the day.
All right. And just celebrate that diversity and feel good about the world. The Lord knows that we've been suffering, you know, cooped up in our places, unable to move around. And finally, technology is giving us this freedom to exchange ideas. Wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. And also, I have never been able to see so many faces during a conference. This is just remarkable. So, okay. So, is there anything else before we conclude? Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you and good night.
It's a pleasure. Bye-bye.
And we will see you tomorrow, 8:30 a.m. London time.
Thank you.
Bye.
See you.
Bye. See you tomorrow. Thank you
Adiós
very
en
much.
español.